Hello.
Hold up. I'm doing the whole intro thing too. Okay, fine. Let's do it from the top.
Like you were here. Oh, no,
Just carry on.
Like you were here like what 3-4 weeks ago and you've forgotten
Do you know
forgotten?
You guys have just so much energy. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to respond. But nah, that's perfect. Yeah. So hello. Yeah.
Yes.
It feels nice to be back.
No,
Thank you for coming back.
it's good to be back. Good to be back on the filling station. Maybe one day we'll have courage to come and share our stories.
I wish you guys would. You can. I mean, you kind of started a few weeks ago and then it all just fizzled out. I still got my eyes on y'all.
But you know what? We're shy. People will hear our
Yeah,
voices
whatever.
and they'll know it's
Yeah,
I'm really
whatever.
shy. And
Yeah, whatever.
guys, I'll come on when you talk about when you talk about something personal that's happened to you.
I've spoken about mine 4 weeks ago when we met.
Oh, we're on
It just
our
happened.
pod.
Yeah, it just happened to be a 4 week. I mean, a high school one.
Yeah.
That's it.
I
So-
forgot about that one,
Mhm.
but more publicly, like having a long proper session, talking about it,
So it means
dissecting it.
So it means we're never gonna have this between
Oh
you guys,
my
are we now?
Exactly. But you know what, guys? This kind of leads us nicely to what we wanted to kind of talk about. You know, we've just been sort of like getting to know each other and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think because we all work and do this creative thing, like we've got like Gillen Skies, the filling station, and there's so many other great things that people are doing. I just, just thinking about what does 2021 feel like, and also how has 2020 been like just creatively for us. Particularly because we both do podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just interested in that. Maybe let's start off with like 2020. Like, how has that been? And even just creatively and the growth of,
So 2020 for me was when the podcast was launched, January the 18th. And it was doing pretty okay. Meeting and interacting with people in studio is great. It's priceless, pretty much. And then March, bang on, Boris Johnson decides we need to shut down everything. And I got stuck. I genuinely didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to connect with people. But what that did for me, it opened up a whole lot more opportunities than I was originally thinking of. So all of my episodes from the beginning until about mid-March were all London-based people
All right.
who came to studio. But from March up until about October, it's international.
Wow.
Because it opened up doors for conversations with people outside. So voice over internet protocol, VoIP became a thing. FaceTime calls became a thing. Google Duo became a thing. Zoom became a thing. And I guess for you guys, even Zoom did the same thing, right?
Yeah, 100. Like you're saying, we had been in a flow coming to the studio. And then Zoom happened. Then Boris Johnson said, stay in your homes. And we're like, oh gosh, what do we do?
Yeah.
And Zoom just gave us that platform to kind of really reach out. We were putting out, and it helped, I think, creatively. We started putting stuff out on YouTube, got a lot more interaction because people were at home. So people were like, oh, we don't need to just listen to you. We can watch you.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of, lockdown has been shit, but it's also helped us grow in so many ways because it did loads of lives.
Listen.
Oh, yeah.
Like
yeah,
everything
you
you have said, and I really have to thank Xolie because I remember when, because I don't know if you guys remember, like coronavirus was like, just
Rona.
a thing,
I like it.
right?
Yeah.
And then I know I'll use it in a work context. I know, like, say, like at work, January it would be like, maybe you'll be in meetings and at the end someone like, by the way, this coronavirus thing, and it would be like the last thing, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then February, it sort of like started being on the main agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, coronavirus update. You're like, oh, okay. And then like all of a sudden it's like, yo, this is the most important thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I remember like one time, obviously, Xolie, you shared like you work in healthcare, and you were talking just about you like just the practicalities of having to come and all that stuff. And I remember we were thinking, because we even tried to do like a mini-sode, remember? Because we're like, let's record 2 episodes. Like, I think we had an hour. Like, let's record 2 episodes and we put one out. And I remember even then at that time, we were like, oh, guys, we don't know when we'll be back, right? So I think in my mind, I was like, I love coming to the studio and everything, right? And then I think I had a conversation with Brent because I was like, okay, people are still putting stuff out. How? Right? And then he was like, okay, Zoom, whatever. And then I think Xoli was the one who was really like, let's do it. And I was like, oh, and I think initially we're just going to try to see how it works. And honestly, like that's what I said, I have to thank Xoli because like you said, like I think we were coasting.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And we then managed to like, again, have interviews with people, outside who sometimes would do maybe like over the phone, but it was never the same. Like that's how we managed to get Fatai Mahere. We managed to get Nkosana Moyo.
Those are some really big names, and it would have never happened if it wasn't for this pandemic, would it?
It wouldn't. And they were available. It was their availability. We had Sunyati.
Yes.
We had, who else did we have? We had the guys from the Cook.
Cook.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
nice.
honestly, it created this opportunity, this space. People were like, okay, you know what? I'm free on site. Because we were like, you know what? We'll work around you.
Yeah.
Tell us your availability.
Yeah.
And we will work around you. And that's what we did. And I think, you thank me, but I thank you too because, we like this whole sound. I think we're both perfectionists in that way. We like it to sound a particular way, and we were like, oh, the sound, but we're like, no, let's just put it because you know what? Right now, everybody is not sounding great.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's just do it, and we did.
That's true.
Yeah, and literally, and I think another thing, to be honest, like I think at the back of our minds, we've always had this question that okay, it was always easy for Xoli and I to do it because we're in London, right? And literally this year has answered like a question in the back of my mind because I've always like, I may want to move at some point.
Yeah.
But actually it's really made the podcast not location dependent.
Yes.
And I'm like,
it's just
that is something that you can't underestimate.
Yeah.
Right. Let's look at the US. People couldn't go for concerts anymore.
Yeah.
And then you had verses that came in. So you're combining artists in this location with that location and still making music sound great.
Yeah.
I think this whole pandemic has really opened up our eyes to the importance of an online presence.
Yeah.
And making sure that you are fluid. Don't get grounded and stuck in a certain way of doing things. Always try and think outside the box. It's a big positive.
It is for sure. And I think, to the lives that we had, things that we had, we did a little bit. I remember pre-lockdown, when we did something like, even in my old flat, do you remember? That was ages ago. But then it was just like a small little thing. But Nat was set loose.
And that's the thing.
We're like, do your thing, sis.
And another thing is we've always kind of been, I mean, I'll talk for me, like at some points, like we've done like video recording and naturally, I'm sensitive about something. I'm like, don't want to put video out. And there's comfort with audio.
Yeah.
But then with the Zoom, it was kind of like, oh, we already have the video. Let's just, and I think it's kind of made us more like, okay, we're just putting ourselves out there, and that's a big growth thing.
Yeah,
it's refreshing, isn't it? To be able to do that as an individual and say, you know what, this is what it is, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
nice.
For sure. No, it's been a challenging year, but I think creatively, I feel like we have moved like a step up, and it's good to hear from you as well. Like from just like national to international.
In fact,
level.
and maybe I'll just add just how international this has been. One of the episodes is from somebody who's in Japan.
Get out.
Yeah. And one of the episodes is by somebody who's in the Bahamas. There's someone from Canada. There's one that dropped a few weeks ago, West Africa. And now East Africa is starting to engage.
Wow.
Because people don't really have that much time to go out clubbing anymore.
Yes.
They're trying to find things to entertain them. And check this out. The pandemic has made people exercise more. How many people are going out for walks and runs because of the pandemic because gyms are closed? And for me, that's been a big positive. Because someone says, look, I go for a morning walk and it's about an hour and the podcast is about an hour.
Yeah.
So they tune in.
Yeah.
So it's been real positive growth.
Yeah.
So speaking of all runs and stuff and walks, so again, Nat started something like a Nike challenge.
Oh yeah.
Was it October?
No, we started in July. So we started in July.
Was it July?
So it was
July.
In the summer. It was July because remember it was Vanessa and I, and I think Tabo joined, and I think you joined. But then. And I think Hedla joined, like there was a few of us, right? And then like it was, I mean, I definitely didn't do the 100K.
Well, you did it a few months though.
And then August, I think, was it September when we got more people on
like
it?
20, over 20 people.
Yeah.
So what was this challenge about?
So
then?
basically, it was like you either walk or run 100K. So we started off with 100K.
For the month.
In
for
what
the
period?
month,
In a month. Okay.
And then the following month we increased it because people were doing it in there's people who do it in 7 days.
Yeah.
It's crazy people
Wow.
out there.
Yeah.
And then the next month it was 150, and now I think it's back to.
So there's now 200 and 150, and yeah, like you said, it's come about because of this, and and there's something else that I've been sort of thinking about. Actually, Kole, I think you kind of had a more formed idea about it. Like, so we've talked about like the importance of like online presence for creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think a few episodes ago when you joined, I talked about just the excitement when I was like, oh my God, the filling station is run by a Zoom guy. Like, I was like, what? And what I'm seeing is like there's a growth in like the online creative space from Zimbabweans.
Oh yeah.
Which is amazing.
Who sometimes are not geographically in Zim.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting space to be in because I think the output is quality.
Mm.
Like people are putting out quality stuff. We talked about 6 foot weight. We've got Sata in the morning. You have this girl who does YouTube, basic girl reads. Like she does the books. You've got the ladies from No Flex Zone.
Yeah.
You have, I'm probably forgetting, like there's so much.
Branching into podcasts.
Yeah, I was just thinking about them. I was just about to mention them.
Yeah. And actually it was interesting because I remember like I saw my cousin tweeting saying, oh, you know what? I really enjoy the fact that my week can be filled with stuff from Zimbabwean creatives.
Yeah. There's something about listening to
your own,
right? Because like, we're talking about all this walking and stuff because when you're going into like a space like your workplace, wherever, to listen just for even break it 30 minutes or 20 minutes, that connection, because I think that's what you get is that connection. And you don't lose that. And you don't lose that. You keep it with you. And then you go out and then it's diluted a little bit with work. But then you come back and then you put your earphones on and you listen. For me, it creates that sense of that community, that belonging, and just listening to people who sound like you, who say irregardless, and you understand exactly what they mean. You're like, yes, say it. But it's I
How
think
old
it's
were you when you
special.
discovered that irregardless is not actually a word?
To be honest, I remember saying that, saying irregardless in at work once, and people looked at me funny. it was sometime like last year, but I remember that. So it's
the reason why I asked that is because it happened to me in January this year.
What happened?
It was 2020 when I discovered that it's really not a word.
Oh,
And
really?
I kept sending it in emails.
Irregardless.
And then my boss came to me one day and said, Tenda, you do realize that this word is not actually correct? I'm like, no, how do you mean it's not correct?
Yeah.
And then he opened up a dictionary and it just wasn't there. And I'm like,
It doesn't exist.
yeah.
It exists in Zim.
Yeah, no, well, that's what I said to him. Well, do you know what it exists in Zim? Then he goes, oh, you guys have been doing it wrong all along, then, haven't you? It's tough.
It is. But yeah, no, but you hear that. You hear people, slip off the tongues. You hear some people saying 17 and you're like, yes.
16.
16. You're like, yes, my
20.
people.
Yeah.
So I think it's been good for that. I think to take away from this horrible, horrible year, there's been some
positive.
There has and we need to look at that, because if we focus just on the negatives, it can be quite hard.
For me, do you know, one of the biggest positives has been, this is just a small diversion from the creative space. George Floyd. He had the whole world's attention just because with nothing better to focus on. And it also enabled laws to start changing. You're starting to see Black Lives Matter everywhere. The road leading up to the White House is now Black Matter Lives.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter
Don't
Boulevard.
change the hashtag.
Bruh, it was a tongue twister. So you're right. A lot of good has come out of all of this.
100.
So just thinking about and Kola, I want you to because I think you had sort of like an idea, because I'm like, I love what we're all doing like in the creative space, and a lot of us, it's a labor of love. You just you're self-funding and you're doing all these things, and I think there's something there about the whole like was owning like that was Zimbabwean. And I always feel strongly that I always feel like the conversation sometimes is very limiting, which is like, oh, you're either in Zim or you're not. Like, even if you look at people that do awards and all that stuff, they'll be like, oh, I'm like, but you've not included people in the diaspora that are doing like great things. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking like, how do we, so there's two things. I feel like we're kind of like, there's this gap that is being filled, which was like that thing that we had at home, like the Radio 3, like TV, when it was all functional, that ecosystem, which seems to kind of like slowly be coming together, but it's slowly coming together because people are just doing things themselves, you know. Yeah. And now I was listening to Madorofia.
I was just about to say, man.
Wow.
That is picking up like mad.
Yes.
Mad.
And it's like, Mukute, like Hinkano, like that is I think he's doing Thursdays, Saturdays.
Yes.
And people are just all coming together and it's a vibe.
So nice.
Do you know what it really reminds me of? Radio 3 when it was still Radio 3,
right?
Yes.
You know that nostalgia is kicking in.
But I think the question that you're going to as well was like, how do we channel this forward as a group? As a group of creatives, as a group of Zimbabwean creatives. Yeah. And I think we had this discussion. And listen, I was thinking yesterday, it was today when I was, or whenever it was, when Kutse had actually tweeted and saying that, I had, was it 5,000 or 6,000 listeners? I was like, imagine if he was saying like, pay a dollar.
Yeah.
Each person pay $1. You can listen.
That's $6,000.
That's $6,000, right? So thinking about ways in which to monetize and which to kind of generate a little bit of income. So just a random thought. But it's like, how do we kind of channel what we have? Because this is amazing. This is amazing that we've got a group of Zimbabweans who are doing this. How do we channel it forward onto like a level to say, okay, in the United Kingdom, there are these people who are doing this? Because there's already a lot of us, right? Yeah. In South Africa, there's a number of podcasters who are doing this, and I thought particularly for us here in the UK, because how can we get, for example, grants to say to host something, to say we as creatives have come up with this idea, we want to do, I don't know. Like I have no idea what that is, but we could do something. We could all put our resources together and kind of take things to the next level. So
I think a lot of it has to do with access to information. So I got a friend of mine called Say, right? She's based in Nottingham. And I hope she's listening to this because I want to give her due credit. She is very good at researching what is available for funding to do what.
Right.
So last week she sent me a link where there's funding that can be given, £25,000 worth of funding that can be given to creatives who come up with a creative idea but just don't know, one, how to execute it, and two, if the main objective is to raise people who are underground. So underground musicians, underground podcasters, anything that just wants you to give you that visibility, the UK government is giving you 25 grand for that. Pure access to information. And how does information go within a community? By building a tribe. And I think we are not doing too badly in terms of building those connections.
That's what I was going to say. I think organically we're trying.
That the connections are being made, right? So the filling station is now connected with you guys. Yeah. We got good rapport. Yeah. I'm equally connected with 6 Feet Weights, and I know you guys are the same. Yeah. Who else can I think about? The Bantu. Oh my goodness, Sadza in the morning already,
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So we already understand the importance of a communal connection. It's just a matter of making this information disseminate through the group.
Okay.
And it doesn't feel like any one of us is selfish about it anyway.
Yeah. Because we're all doing this. Like I can't think of one person who's saying that we are getting this amount of money. It is like a labor of love. Yeah. And maybe that should be the next thing. Let's hook up with Sadza in the morning. Yeah. Hook up with 6 Foot Weights. Hook up with a few guys. And let's just have that discussion and say, okay guys, so what can we do? And maybe we can link in with your friend who can get information.
Honestly, she is brilliant.
Yeah. And another thing, even I was thinking like on the Madorofia FM, and even like, I think Tinto, we're sort of about to have the conversation when we were talking. It's like actually, if you look at the American space, for example, I like what business is doing in using podcasting and just that space for advertising. If you think about the Squarespace, for example, the website development thing, its growth, a lot of it is due to podcast advertising. When they were advertising on their Bevel, which is the men sort of like beauty skincare thing. Like they grew like from advertising. And for me, I'm kind of thinking to myself, oh, you know, and again, which takes me back to the whole geography and the way of looking at it. I'm like, imagine if, I don't know what company, Econet or whatever, advertised on Madorofia.
Exactly.
With 6,000 people listening.
Wow.
And you have that, right? And probably it would be so much more, like less expensive than, I don't know, advertising wherever. You know, advertise on the filling station. As an example, right? Because all of these will be low cost, but actually, you know, the listenership is great. And the thing, and the good thing about these things is they, you know, someone can listen 6 months later and all that stuff. So I think there's something there just about African businesses being more creative about
the way they do
it.
How they're actually getting funding.
You see, for me, one of the challenges is whenever you go onto YouTube and an advert sticks up, what's your natural reaction? Skip. You know, this is really interrupting my flow. I don't like how this is going. I don't know how we're going to get over that hurdle. Because I'm trying to imagine myself listening to an episode, right, of Girl in Skies, and then suddenly you start talking Econet, you can do this, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna be like, okay.
It's how you do it.
It's how you do it.
It's how you do it.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to this, these guys called, what's it called? It's called Here's the Thing. So I have YouTube subscription, so I don't get ads.
Oh, but you bougie.
But
y'all got money, innit?
I love my listening space. But in their podcast, they literally talk. They're sponsored by whoever, and they will talk about. So in the episode, they'll talk about. Oh, so this episode is sponsored by blah blah blah. They'll talk some random thing. So maybe they're talking about. So I know this comes to mind because you know, this is what they're talking about today. They were like, oh, you know, for example, the Pope has been seen liking this Instagram page with the booty. Oh, that girl's got booty. So do you know what you need to do to get a booty like that? Subscribe to beachbody.com.
Wow.
Beachbody.com and it just slides in. So you're just like, okay, transition. So, you know, I think there's ways around it and it doesn't seem so harsh that, okay, I'm listening to an advert, you know, but I think there's ways in which around it and there's ways to get around it. And I think me as a listener, I know that this is what's helping these people get their money. I don't mind it.
I guess that also depends on the person who you're doing an advert for. So I know Anchor, if anybody is uploading their podcast via Anchor, they've got a section where you can monetize, but you need to read a script.
Oh.
Right, and you have the option if you read the script at the beginning, it doesn't pay as much as if you read the mid-roll.
Right.
And it has to be verbatim, word for word.
Oh.
Then you got a problem.
Yeah.
But these guys are paying up to, I think it's about $37 per episode just for mentioning them. Now imagine you got 3, because you can have about 3 in an episode if you choose. If they're all paying the same, you're making $100 per episode. But you have to read these things verbatim.
Yeah.
So now you need to strike that balance between your audience and interfering your flow with that.
Yeah.
So I guess you're right. If they allow you to have the freedom to jazz it up, great. If not, we're stuffed.
Yeah. No. I think it's interesting, and there's definitely sort of like other ways that we can do it. I'm thinking like the Joe Budden podcast, for example, on YouTube. They just put like Cash App on the thing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But they don't talk. They don't do
talk
advertising
about it.
because nobody doesn't want to do that.
Joe
Like
Biden doesn't do it.
Yeah, nobody just wants. Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
But obviously, Cash App are paying for it just to have that on.
Yeah,
because as you're watching, it's just there. But no, it's an interesting conversation. And just to kind of like round up, how do you guys want 2021 to feel like?
For my podcast, I wanted to feel more international.
Okay.
So more engagement. I'd love to have people from the Caribbean getting involved.
Nice.
I'd love to have people coming from Asia, Japan again, Korean, Chinese people coming into the mix. And it's not impossible because online presence and Zoom and all of that thing, you know, have made it possible. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. I think for us, I think a little bit more I don't even know. I don't want it to feel like. I want it to continue to feel like it's our first episode, like that excitement to not to go away. Great, like more engagement from people, which I think we have so much already, and just for it to feel a part of somebody's life, like it's Tuesday, just like there is. I don't know what's on a Tuesday, but yes, then there's Girl in Skies.
Yeah,
nice.
How about for you?
No, I think the same. I think I wanted to grow. like we have the metrics, like
yes,
Instagram. We need to reach this, whatever.
But it's
whatever. So I wanted to grow a similar way. Like I do want it to. Because I think like our listenership is quite broad, like 60 plus countries, a lot of it significantly being Zimbabweans. And interestingly enough, a lot of South Africans are starting to join in. I wanted to like more SADC, more African. In its appeal. Yeah. So just figuring that out, and for us to be just sustainable. Yeah. That the pod pays for itself.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
By the way, things like buy me a coffee,
yeah.
those are great, but they depend on tribal connection and people just being intertwined. So maybe the vision for 2121 is to increase, that stick in that gel.
Yeah.
People to make them feel really, really hooked in.
Definitely.
Great.
Should we so just to end the pod, should we just play one song? Is there any?
Go on.
Any?
Go for it. You must have something.
Yeah, be saying something. Be saying something whilst I am thinking.
What do you think about Wizkid's album, the new one?
It's fire.
It's magic, innit?
Have you seen that meme with the ginger song?
Yes.
When the guy is like,
boy.
he's like, yeah, okay, no, just go in, just
go easy,
go easy, just a little, and then
Burna Boy just burns it up.
Nice, fire.
Yo, that song Ginger is fire.
Actually, can you just play that?
Yeah, please.